The only absolute facts are those concerning truths of reason, otherwise, facts are contingent, hence not absolutely true. Are you looking for necessary, eternal, perfect truths or contingent truths that are one observation away from being falsified? Don't you want to base your life on certainty rather than contingency? Scientific materialism cannot, by its nature, offer a definitive account of reality. It can offer only a contingent picture in which people can legitimately place great confidence, but no absolute truths are ever offered, or ever can be. Atheists are often scientific materialists, and they seem to be people who are not particularly interested in truth with a capital T, hence it's no surprise that they are not seduced by religion or rationalism, which are both preoccupied with absolute truth. The whole approach of science, as practiced by the scientific establishment, is opposed to rationalism. It refuses to acknowledge that there are rational, analytic truths of reality that are beyond the challenge of experiment. These cannot be experimentally verified, but they are nevertheless eternally true. Even if science could somehow turn M-theory into a grand unified theory of everything, it would be a misnomer. It would simply be a provisional theory, like all other such theories, that could be refuted at any time by any experimental data contrary to the theory. So, what's the point? Why not just call it our best guess theory? It doesn't have quite the same resonance, does it? Quantum theory is the most successful and experimentally verified theory in history, yet no scientist on Earth claims to be sure what it means. It won't be any different with M-theory. It won't satisfy anyone. It won't be regarded as a comprehensive answer to existence because, quite simply, science isn't in the business of final explanations and necessary truths. By its nature, it's always contingent and provisional. Only scientific rationalism, not scientific empiricism, can provide the absolute truth. That's the whole point of the rationalist approach: to establish what is incontrovertibly, undeniably, incontestably, eternally true, of necessity. The universe is not contingent, relative, provisional. It's grounded in absolute rationality that any sufficiently rational mind can comprehend. Illuminism is the true grand unified theory of everything that definitively explains everything once and for all. Illuminism is about the fundamental, analytic, necessary, rational truths of existence that cannot be contradicted. By definition, Illuminism has identified what the rational arc is: mathematics itself, numbers. All things are numbers, declared Pythagoras so long ago, but couldn't prove it. Now, his organization, the Illuminati, have proved it. There are two ways of looking at the world: rationally and empirically, or, as we might say, via reason or the senses. Reason is about objective reality. The senses are about subjective reality. If we compare existence to a game of chess, the aim of Illuminism is to explain the board, the pieces, the rules, and how and why the game originated in the first place. The board is the space-time Cartesian arena, a flawless domain of mathematical points. The pieces are numbers: open paren, energy waves closed paren, which can combine in all manner of ways. The rules are the laws of mathematics, which are built into every point in the board. The game arose in the first place because of the logic of existence versus non-existence, and dialectical, ontological logic. It was a necessary game that could never be otherwise. Illuminism is about looking down on the game and understanding the game once and for all. This is the view of objective reality. Illuminism does not make any claim to know what moves will be made. That's for the players to decide. However, another view of the game is possible, the view of the players themselves. They don't have a bird's-eye view of the game. They're not even sure where they are, why they are in this game, or what the rules are. Nevertheless, they are having to make moves. Their experience of the game is subjective, not objective. They are using their senses to gather data about the game, and then trying to make sense of the sensory data with their reason. But sensory data is subjective, not objective. It comes with feelings, fears, desire, will. It has all sorts of inbuilt limitations. The senses can easily deceive, most especially in optical illusions and systematic internal biases. Different moves in the game can reveal different things about the game, so although a big picture of the game eventually develops, there's no certainty that the last word has been said about the game. The game's final nature can never be addressed using this sensory, subjective route. Scientific rationalism gives us the objective, infallible view of the game. Scientific materialism gives us the player's limited view of the game, full of wrong moves, errors, illusions, speculations, hypotheses, theories, ever-changing evidence, contradictions, interpretations and so on. There is never any end with this approach. There is simply a process of ever more plausible theories that never reaches a limit. So, what route will you follow? Scientific rationalism or scientific empiricism? The Illuminati have always followed the rationalist path and found it to be the best possible path, because it's the path of mathematics, the language of existence itself. It was the British contingent of Hobbes, Locke, Hume and, especially, Newton, who dragged the world into the dead zone of scientific empirical materialism. To be saved, the world needs to turn instead to the German contingent of Kant, Schopenhauer, Hegel, and, above all, the luminous genius Leibniz. Their vision of scientific rationalist idealism is the only route through which science can be reconciled with philosophy metaphysics religion and psychology. But another group, usually completely ignored, deserves the highest possible praise, the mathematicians. We will name the following mathematicians as the greatest of the modern era before the 20th century René Descartes Terrain, France Gottfried Leibniz Leipzig, Germany Carl Friedrich Gauss Brunswick, Germany Leonhard Euler German-speaking Basel, Switzerland Joseph Fourier Auxerre, France Bernhard Riemann Göttingen, Germany Georg Cantor Hall, Germany These were the group of heroes who did the most to fulfill the original vision of Pythagoras, supplemented by Plato. We salute all of these wondrous geniuses. Contingent: dependent on conditions or events not yet established. Conditional: accidental, a factor or attribute that is not essential, neither necessarily true nor necessarily false. Necessity: an essential requirement, something that must inevitably exist or occur, the state or fact of being indispensable or unavoidable. The multiverse. The multiverse is a scientific hypothesis concerning an infinity of universes. In fact, Leibniz's monadology was the first multiverse because it consisted of infinite monads, each of which was its own universe. The big difference, of course, is that each Leibnizian universe reflected a single collective universe. Each monad had a unique perspective of the same universe. No other monad could have that perspective. So, a monad was both its own universe and part of the same universe as all other monads. Leibniz's is the ultimate quantum universe, the two most important things. Remember, Illuminism is all about Pythagoras's astounding observation that all things are numbers. The most important number is zero. Objectively, zero is simply a dimensionless mathematical point. Subjectively, it is none other than the basic unit of life and mind, a monad, a soul. Mathematically, each monad contains infinity that is all possible numbers, both real and imaginary, positive and negative of such a nature that all the different components of infinity, positive and negative, cancel to zero. So, from one angle, a monad appears to contain nothing, yet from another it is infinitely full of things. That's its supreme paradox, which can only be comprehended rationally and mathematically and can never be subject to experimental verification. You will never get something like a Large Hadron Collider to provide scientific proof of this. So, the nature of the monad is the first critical thing to grasp about Illuminism. The second is that numbers, ontologically, exist as energy frequencies. Each monad contains every possible type of basis energy sinusoidal wave, each one having a unique frequency that is unique number. As soon as you grasp that energy is simply number, you will have no difficulty understanding why Pythagoras is right that all things are numbers. No one would have blinked with surprise if he had said, the universe contains nothing but energy. The universe contains infinite zeros, each containing infinity that cancels to zero. The universe from one view is eternally nothing. Everything objectively cancels to zero. This is the mental domain of zero and cancelable infinity. And from another view it is the interaction of infinite numbers. Energy waves. Between zero and infinity. The two views exist together without contradiction. They are two sides of the same coin. Noumenon and phenomenon, intelligible and sensible. You know that we are right, because this is the most rational, beautiful, perfect universe there could possibly be. The best of all possible worlds, to use Leibniz's immortal description. The objective versus subjective universe. It's crucial to understand that the universe, objectively, contains no colors, no sights, no sounds, no tastes, no smells, no touch, no sensations and no feelings. If we could somehow see the universe objectively, well, we wouldn't see anything at all. The universe is an infinitely large mathematical equation, an ontological equation, a living equation. In some ways, the objective universe resembles the workings of a computer. Look at the spectacular output of a video game console and then consider what's going on behind the scenes. Endless boring calculations and machine operations that no one cares about and are never seen or perceived in any way. We only ever perceive the output. We never see the machinery in action. We watch TV shows without knowing anything that goes on inside in a TV. It's always that way. We can rationally work out how a TV functions. Indeed, it was rational minds that created the TV in the first place. But the average person knows nothing about any of that and simply watches the show. Therefore, it is with the ultimate TV, the universe itself. Philosophers, scientists and mathematicians work out how it operates, but everyone else couldn't care less. The Abrahamists say, God made it, and give it no further thought. The Karmists make mystical pronouncements then give it no further thought. They all just get on with interacting with the output, with the show that the universe pumps out 24/7. They themselves are in the show, of course. In fact, they are the 24/7 star of their own part of the show. So, the universe behind the scenes is just an invisible equation, infinitely large with infinitely many variables, seeking to optimize itself. That is the purpose of existence: to reach its optimal solution. God and heaven are what the universe produces right at the end of its ultimate cosmic calculation. The universe creates God: God does not create the universe. God is the solution to the cosmic equation. Douglas Adams famously said that 42 was the ultimate answer to life, the universe and everything. A supercomputer called Deep Thought gave that answer after many eons pondering the matter. Adams was not too far wrong. The universe itself is the ultimate computer and, after pondering the question for an age, its final answer is, I am the meaning of life, the universe and everything, for I am God. Meaning is invested in two related things: an aim, and the process to achieve the aim. That there is an aim at all immediately indicates the operation of teleology, something that is utterly denied by scientific materialists. They assign no meaning or aim to existence. Existence is all process and no purpose. In teleology, the goal is all that matters. The universe is consumed with that goal, and all processes are dedicated to it. Meaning becomes associated with this great quest for meaning. Meaning itself is the meaning of the universe. What could be more logical? In order to determine meaning, it's essential to know everything, to understand the precise nature of existence. Only the mind of God can understand everything, so the universe, every part of it, yearns to become God. God is the aim of the universe because God alone can determine absolute meaning. The will to power culminates in having absolute power, that is, in being God. God is the terminus of all dialectical strands. The universe is dialectically converging on God. God, the perfection of the universe, is what the universe strives for. God is all power, all knowledge and all meaning. God is meaning. That's why religion is so much more powerful than science in terms of the human imagination. Science denies God and denies meaning. It's literally pointless. How could that satisfy anyone? In fact, meaninglessness is not endured by anyone, including scientists. Science makes itself meaning, that is, it replaces God. For the scientist, science is meaning even if it has no ultimate meaning. Understanding as much as possible about the world is what drives the scientist, even if it's to finally arrive at the conclusion that the universe is mere process devoid of meaning. For them, the journey is what matters and not the destination. The object of teleology. For the religiously minded, the destination. The Holy Grail itself. Is what matters, and if the Grail is not discovered, then life has been a failure. Science has no Grail other than the grand unified theory of everything, which in fact is simply a best estimate of a final scientific theory, but is inherently provisional and doesn't provide any real answer to life, the universe and everything. They might as well have said, 42. For scientists, 42 is as good an answer as any to the meaning of life. For Abrahamists, the meaning of life is invested in the belief that their God exists. For karmists, the meaning of life resides in attaining some mystical union with the universe. For the Illuminati, the meaning of life resides in becoming God and thus knowing everything and having all power. For everyone other than atheists, meaning revolves around God. The Abrahamists want to worship God, the karmists want to enter into union with God, and the Illuminati want to become God. So, what's your choice? In Illuminism, most especially Hegelian Illuminism, the purpose of the universe is to attain absolute, conscious knowledge of itself, to know itself for exactly what it is. Only the mind of God has the capacity to comprehend the universe in its entirety. If each of us can become God, we ourselves will have that capacity. We are all part of the unfolding cosmic calculation, the divine calculation, and we ourselves have the potential to be divine. This book itself is a portal to the divine plan, and anyone who reads and understands it is well on their way to becoming God. So, objectively, the universe is a gargantuan equation, the biggest there can possibly be, the equation that defines totality. Subjectively, the universe is quite different. It is full of colors, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, desires, feelings, a kaleidoscope of sensual information and emotional responses. Each subject gets its own personal glimpse of the universe from its own unique point of view. It has no idea that it is just one node in an equation vast beyond the imagining. The interface between the subjective universe and the objective universe are bodies with eyes, ears, noses, Mouths, skin, bodies are machines for turning objective mathematical signals into a form which can be experienced by a subjective mind. Sensory information is not objective information. It is objective information plus a manipulation performed on that objective information by a body open paren via its sense organs and brain close paren, which turns it into a new type of information which is then experienced by a subjective mind. Remove bodies from the universe, and you remove all sensory information. When TV documentaries show a reconstruction of the Big Bang, they invariably present a fireball, an immense sensory spectacle. Of course, this is 100% false. There were no bodily subjects at the time of the Big Bang, hence no sense organs, hence no sensory information whatever. Nothing was seen, heard, smelt, tasted or felt for the simple reason that there were no sensing bodies present to process any data. The Big Bang was an entirely invisible operation, happening in an invisible universe completely devoid of any sensory data. Sure, all sorts of signals were being generated that, had sensing bodies been around, would have been converted into a sensory extravaganza, but there were no bodies, hence no senses, hence no actual sensory data. Sensory data is the output of sense organs and brains processing objective data. When sense organs and brains are absent, so is sensory information. Objective signals are not themselves sensory: they become sensory after appropriate processing. Falling trees make no sound at all if they fall and no observer is present. Falling trees generate signals that could be converted into sounds if ears and brains were present. If they are not, no sound is made. It's an ancient conundrum, and it's also one of the most profound. When a subject becomes God, the whole universe becomes its body and it senses everything. It does not have its own personal body anymore. You know you are God when you do not have a localized body, but physical existence itself is your body. Scientific materialism is a subject that, if understood properly, rejects the whole concept of subjectivity. Subjectivity goes hand in hand with mind, free will, dimensionless existence and the numbers 0 and infinity, all of which are denied by scientific materialists. Scientific materialism is incapable of telling us anything at all about life as a mental phenomenon because it doesn't actually believe in it. It has no model for it, no vocabulary for it, no tools for investigating it. Regarding morality, Nietzsche declared, there are no moral phenomena whatever, only moral interpretations of phenomena. In other words, all moral judgments are invariably synthetic a posteriori, and aren't actually moral at all. There is no pre-existing moral code, no cosmic book of morality and commandments. Absolute morality simply does not exist. It's always relative. Morals are just social conventions, constantly changing depending on the fashions and attitudes of the time. Morality never transcends its time. Christians routinely do things today that would, in the Christian mind of 500 years ago, have warranted eternal damnation. Either the Christians of 500 years ago were completely wrong, or those today are completely wrong. How do we decide? Well, as Nietzsche said, it will be an opinion, an interpretation, we offer, not anything eternally certain and inarguable. In Illuminism, all minds are mathematical objects open paren monads close paren and a part of the Cartesian arena in which physical reality unfolds open paren. A perfect Cartesian grid is the inevitable consequence of an infinity of monads open paren points, close paren having unique existential coordinates close paren. In Kantian terms, minds are noumena, which come equipped with all of the analytic a priori truths of mathematics. Moreover, the Cartesian arena of space and time, itself composed of monads, also, therefore, has all of the analytic a priori truths of mathematics inbuilt. What enters this Cartesian arena of space and time are the real and imaginary numbers, open paren energy waves, closed paren contained within monads. Open paren, each monad contains infinite positive real numbers, infinite negative numbers, infinite positive imaginary numbers and infinite negative numbers, all of which cancel to zero. That is, a monad can contain infinity energy and mathematical capacity and still remain zero. Closed paren. These numbers are mathematical objects and are ipso facto absolutely consistent with all of the laws of mathematics encoded in the arena in which they find themselves. So, everything in this system automatically knows the eternal laws of mathematics. There is nothing non-mathematical in this system. All noumena and phenomena are just mathematical entities. In terms of the chess analogy, every piece, and the board too, has the laws of the game encoded in it. None of the pieces consciously knows it, of course. In this system, the laws of mathematics are encoded in everything, because all things are mathematical objects. Open paren numbers, closed paren, and those laws are all analytic a priori. All of the laws and rules exist prior to experience and completely dictate the nature of experience and what it is possible to experience. They are the necessary preconditions of experience. In other words, rationalism comes first and empiricism is secondary. Mathematics comes first and science is secondary. Idealism comes first and materialism is secondary. Conscious minds typically seek to attain knowledge of their environment through synthetic a posteriori judgments, that is, observing what's around them, experiencing it and forming appropriate inferences. In the case of mainstream religions, synthetic a posteriori judgments are fitted into a mythos landscape designed to make sense of such judgments according to a divine plan, divine text, or divine being. The mythos itself is the important thing, and it does not place any importance on synthetic a posteriori judgments if they contradict the mythos. Open paren, for example, the discovery of ancient dinosaur fossils is not permitted to contradict the Book of Genesis. Closed paren. In the case of science, scientists seek to meld synthetic a posteriori judgments with analytic a priori mathematical hypotheses. Science is thus a combination of the analytic a priori and the synthetic a posteriori, and has proved highly successful. However, what is needed is an all-embracing mathematical approach to science rather than a piecemeal approach designed to fit hypotheses and observations, which keep changing as new observations contradict old hypotheses. The only way to end scientific provisionalism is to accept mathematics itself as reality, and thus all experimental observations are simply reflecting aspects of a mathematical rather than scientific reality. The difference between Illuminism and science is that Illuminism makes mathematics the eternally true, immutable, grand unified, Pythagorean-Platonic theory of everything, and regards all experiments as revealing aspects of this mathematical reality. Science, on the other hand, seeks to work from experimental observations and to make the mathematics fit them via provisional hypotheses which are continually being refined. Since no experiment can reveal unobservables, open paren noumena, closed paren, then the scientific approach automatically obeys a materialist and empiricist ideology and rules out idealism and strict rationalism. Rationalism does not accept the primacy of experimental observations and instead embraces idealism and the existence of unobservable rational noumena. Scientific empiricist materialism asserts the primacy of synthetic a posteriori observations, so rules out any mathematical entities open paren such as ontological zero closed paren deemed unobservable, hence non-existent open paren because materialism asserts that only the observable exists. In absence of evidence is evidence of absence closed paren. Scientific rationalist idealism asserts the primacy of analytic a priori judgments, so embraces the whole of mathematics, including all formally unobservable mathematical objects. Scientific empiricist materialism can never be mathematically complete. It regards mathematics as merely a subset of science, hence it can never arrive at a Pythagorean-Platonic absolute theory. It will always be provisional. It's all about contingency. Scientific rationalist idealism, on the other hand, is mathematically complete. It regards science as a subset of mathematics and yields a Pythagorean-Platonic absolute theory of existence that is necessarily true and eternal. To be a scientific rationalist idealist, you simply need to accept that mathematical analytic a priori statements are true whether they have scientifically observable consequences. They are not refuted by lack of experimental evidence for them, and they are in any case out with the scope of any materialistic experiment. There's your crystal clear choice. What's it to be? A triangle. Why do the internal angles of a triangle necessarily add up to 108 degrees, the same number associated with a straight line? Take any straight line, and split it into 3 parts of the same or varying lengths. Fit the 3 pieces together to form an enclosed shape. You have just created a triangle and, of course, since you made it from a straight line, it will have internal angles adding up to 100 degrees. A triangle is just a straight line broken into 3 and made into an enclosed shape. Squares and rectangles open paren, 2 triangles fitted together close paren are just 2 lines, each broken into 2 equal parts and brought together, thus creating internal angles of 2 times 108 degrees open paren equals 360 degrees close paren. A circle of 360 degrees can be fitted inside a square of 360 degrees. And a square inside a circle. A straight line with a point at infinity can be mapped exactly to a circle. A plane with a point at infinity can be mapped exactly to a sphere. Pi is an infinitely long number. Pi is somehow encapsulating the point at infinity that turns a straight line into a circle. On all of these facts simply incredible. Mathematics produces endless fascinating patterns that humanity has barely begun to unravel. There are countless wondrous mathematical discoveries lying ahead of us. The subjective mind and the objective mind. A monad is a mind, a soul, but it is also a mathematical, dimensionless point, containing an infinity of numbers, both positive and negative, and cancelling to zero. The fact that all possible numbers are contained within a monad has a remarkable corollary. It means that the entire laws of mathematics are encoded in every monad. All monads inherently carry around the laws of mathematics with them. They are inbuilt. Subjectively, a monad mind is driven by will, desire and emotion. That is the essence of the subjective mind. Note that it is not rational or logical. It is a kind of existential striving, a primal lust to obtain pleasure and avoid pain. Above all, it is the will to power open paren as Nietzsche asserted close paren because the more power you have the more pleasure you can obtain and the more pain you can avoid. Everyone craves more and more and it is our fundamental desire. When power is increasing, we feel good and confident about ourselves. When power is decreasing, we feel bad, negative and depressed. In human society, power has become reified open paren turned into physical form closed paren in the shape of money. The rich are powerful, the poor are powerless. The rich are active and in charge of their own lives. The poor are passive and have to endure whatever shit the rich impose on them. The poor have no control over their lives, hence are perennially depressed. The painting The Scream by Munch sums up their lives. So, the subjective mind is consumed with the pursuit of power. Because all subjective minds reflect the same craving, they might be said to constitute a cosmic will to power. Each of us individually seeks to maximize our power, and the universe seeks to maximize its. The will to power is the essence of becoming, and is the driver of the Hegelian dialectic. Power is inherently about a contest, about the great cosmic strife of which Heraclitus spoke. We are all attempting to increase our power, and that frequently means crushing someone else and rendering them powerless. We are all trying to steal power from others in order to enhance our own. Very few people realize that cooperation is the best means to enhance our power. Science is so successful because the scientific community cooperates. Religion, politics and economics don't work because they are about vicious competition and absence of cooperation. They are dog-eat-dog, law of the jungle systems, built on inequality, fanaticism, self-interest, selfishness, intolerance, hate, persecution of the other, and so on. There are two ways the will to power can unfold: one via the master-slave dialectic, where we are all involved in countless master-slave relationships with others. Rich people are always the masters and the poor are always the slaves. However, if a poor person holds a gun to a rich man's head, the roles are reversed. All roles can be reversed by strong people willing to take their chances. Our world reflects almost nothing but master-slave systems, beliefs and institutions. Abrahamists seek to compensate for their own lack of power by allying themselves with the supreme power, God. They believe that if they enslave themselves to him, then he will offer them ultimate protection. In effect, the Abrahamic God is engaged in the supreme protection racket. He's the mafia God, making an offer no one can refuse. Abrahamists are natural-born slaves, looking for the strongest master. The master-slave dialectic eventually resolves itself, in Hegel's opinion, with the demise of both the masters and the slaves. Everyone reaches a condition of mutual self-respect and respect for others. Marx believed that communism was the political system that delivered this perfect world without masters or slaves. He asserted that communism was dialectically inevitable. Its success was guaranteed. Yet communism failed, and in fact there is no evidence at all that the master-slave world is vanishing. It takes on new guises, but the same old patterns are just beneath the surface. Much of the world uses the rhetoric of equality while at the same time maintaining rigid and ferocious hierarchies. The old world order are the masters of the master-slave dialectic, and they are obsessed with permanent dynastic power, passed down their bloodline. The alternative to the hierarchical master-slave dialectic is the primus inter pares first amongst equals round table dialectic. What this means is that everyone is imagined to be seated at a round table, as equals, yet in every endeavor, some will be better than others. In whatever activity is the focus of the round table at any one time, the group best suited for the task becomes the first amongst equals, the most meritocratic in that field. In other fields, they will not be the most meritocratic, and they will take a back seat, and others will become the first amongst equals. In this way, we can have a society based on the principle of equality, but recognizing that we are not all equally talented, and that it is best for everyone if the first amongst equals assume their rightful positions as the head of their area of expertise. This is the meritocratic worldview. Communism declared everyone equal regardless of their merit, and that's why it failed. We must be as attuned to inequality as we are to equality if we are to have the best of all worlds. In capitalist democracy, lip service is paid to equality while, in practice, rigid hierarchies based on wealth, class, background, culture, sex, age too young or too old sexuality, race and so on are everywhere. In a perfect communist state, equality is enforced, even when it's counterproductive and inappropriate. Meritocracy is not about equality per se, but about equality of opportunity, leading to inequality of outcomes. Everyone at the round table is given the same chance, but some will be more talented and harder working, and they will be the ones who prosper most. Nevertheless, They will never form rigid hierarchies. Nothing that ventures too far into master-slave territory will be tolerated. Excesses of power, money or influence will always be prevented. The anchor. The objective mind is not about becoming, it is about being. The objective mind reflects the eternal, immutable, analytic, mathematical Platonic forms. It is our ultimate anchor in the violent storm of becoming. The objective mind is the collective mind of the universe, and it consists of the laws of mathematics and mathematical logic, and they are built into every single monad. The more that a subjective mind aligns itself with the objective mind, the more objective it becomes itself, and the more it becomes capable of understanding the true mathematical nature of existence. The subjective mind evolves from a rational will to rational will, from an emotional mythos view of reality based on stories, legends, myths, parables, revelations, holy texts, propaganda, fiction, drama, theater, and so on to a logos view based on reason, logic, mathematics, philosophy, science, academia. It's astoundingly easy to tell whether someone is mythos or logos oriented. If they have almost no books in their house, they are mythos people. If they have lots of fiction books, they are mythos people. If they have lots of books about science, philosophy, mathematics, history, psychology, technology, artificial intelligence and so on, they are logos thinkers. Evolution is about the gradual conversion of primitive animal minds to mythos minds, and finally to logos minds. Mythos minds have a predisposition towards empiricism and the senses, logos minds towards rationalism, metaphysics and mathematics. Science is an odd subject because its reverence for empiricism and the senses over rationalism and metaphysics makes it partly a mythos, faith-based undertaking that deliberately cuts itself off from rational certainty. It places experimental provisionalism over the eternal, immutable laws of mathematics and logic, yet, it also grounds itself in mathematics, the ultimate Platonic, rational subject. It's thanks to mathematics that science is successful, not thanks to experiments. If scientists were smart enough, they could work out the whole of science mathematically, without any resort at all to experiments. Experiments should be seen as a means of corroborating rational considerations, not determining them. God is someone who has an absolutely conscious objective mind, that is, God consciously knows all of mathematics in every detail. God is driven by rational will intellect not a rational will. His mirror image in this regard, Satan, is driven by a rational will, not rational will. One need only read the Abrahamic holy texts to see that they are all about the irrational will of God, and they contain no expression of rationality whatsoever. You would have no idea that subjects such as mathematics, science or philosophy even existed if you read the Abrahamic texts alone. You would not know or learn anything about reason or logic, but you would know everything about irrationality, will and the master-slave dialectic. Satan is a god who failed to evolve in rational terms intellectually. He is extremely powerful in terms of will, but not in terms of reason. All mythos people are natural Satanists, and all logos people are drawn to a rational god a deist rather than theist god Deist conceptions of God are intellectual, theistic conceptions of God are willful. Deist conceptions of God are about logos and theistic conceptions of God are about mythos. The Aristotelian soul: wherever there is life there is soul. Aristotle spoke of a hierarchy of souls beginning with the lowest, the souls of plants, and moving up to the highest, human souls. Plant souls are preoccupied with eating and digesting food, with bodily growth and reproduction. Animal souls receive and respond to sense impressions. A human soul has, in addition to plant and animal soul components, the power to think. Just as the animal soul perceives objects in the world, the reasoning mind perceives intellectual concepts. Aristotle introduced a fascinating distinction between passive open paren uncreative closed paren and active open paren creative closed paren reason. Passive reason is something akin to a jumble of concepts and ideas open paren, the mental equivalent of unshaped matter closed paren, which needs to be acted upon by active reason to turn it into something useful. Open paren. Most people in the world have passive reason. They don't do much in rational terms because they lack active, creative reason closed paren. Aristotle asserted that creative reason existed prior to the human body or soul. That is, the implication is that it belongs to God or nature and is eternal. According to Aristotle, all parts of the human soul die with the body except for the creative reason component, which pre-existed the soul. This is the divine spark and humanity. To deploy creative reason is to partake of God's nature, and the less you exercise reason, the less godly you are. The divine spark attaches itself to the human soul, but is not an intrinsic part of it, and hence survives death. This doctrine proved highly influential with the Stoics. With Aristotle, we see an interesting concept of a bifurcated soul in which one part is mortal and another immortal open paren and actually belonging to God rather than the person. It was as if God lent his reason to selected souls closed paren. The only part of a human soul that has an afterlife is the part that came from God, and it simply returns to God. Isn't it time the message went out loud and clear? To be rational is to be godly, and to be irrational is to be a beast. Nietzsche had many perceptive things to say about natural philosophy open paren physics closed paren. He rightly saw it as an ingenious description of reality, but not an explanation. He wrote: It is perhaps just dawning on 5 or 6 minds that natural philosophy is only a world-exposition and world-arrangement open paren according to us, if I may say so closed paren, and not a world-explanation, but insofar as it is based on belief in the senses, it is regarded as more, and for a long time to come must be regarded as more namely, as an explanation. It has eyes and fingers of its own. It has ocular evidence and palpableness of its own. This operates fascinatingly, persuasively, and convincingly upon an age with fundamentally plebeian tastes. In fact, it follows instinctively the canon of truth of eternal popular sensualism. What is clear, what is explained, only that which can be seen and felt. One must pursue every problem thus far. Obversely, however, the charm of the Platonic mode of thought, which was an aristocratic mode, consisted precisely in resistance to obvious sense evidence perhaps among men who enjoyed even stronger and more fastidious senses than our contemporaries, but who knew how to find a higher triumph in remaining masters of them. And this by means of pale, cold, grey conceptual networks which they threw over the motley whirl of the senses. The mob of the senses, as Plato said, in this overcoming of the world, and interpreting of the world in the manner of Plato, there was an enjoyment different from that which the physicists of today offer us. And likewise the Darwinists and anti-teleologists among the physiological workers, with their principle of the smallest possible effort, and the greatest possible blunder. Where there is nothing more to see or to grasp, there is also nothing more for men to do. That is certainly an imperative different from the Platonic one, but it may notwithstanding be the right imperative for a hardy, laborious race of machinists and bridge builders of the future, who have nothing but rough work to perform. Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil. Fascinatingly, Nietzsche considers over-regard for the senses as plebeian, while Plato's disregard for them is patrician open paren aristocratic close paren. We agree with Nietzsche. There is something staggeringly vulgar and infantile about the worship of sensory data. Scientists have clambered into the gutters along with all the others who can't think, those who worship the senses, and the evidence of their own eyes. What is clear, what is explained? Only that which can be seen and felt. Nietzsche: this is the key to stupid thinking. This is the key to science and common sense, to the thinking of the man in the street. Everything is about what can be seen and felt. This is the crux of the materialist ideology. Nietzsche regarded Plato as a noble thinker, mastering the uncouth sensual tendencies of the masses. It's time for science to get back on the Platonic track and escape the plebeian doctrine of sensualism. All higher thinkers can transcend the drawer of the obvious. The real truths are always hidden. Secret societies are all about reaching this hidden layer that will never be available to common eyes and common ears. It's sad that scientists have thrown in their lot with the vulgar masses. Their demands for sensory evidence rather than rational proofs have damned them as second-rate minds. Only rational truths are absolute and incontestable. If you haven't understood that, you haven't understood anything. To paraphrase Nietzsche, you have committed the greatest possible blunder with the smallest possible effort. Nietzsche, forever the contrarian and critic, was no fan of idealism either. He delivered a brilliant hammer blow to Kantian idealism in just a few sentences: To study physiology with a clear conscience, one must insist on the fact that the sense-organs are not phenomena in the sense of the idealistic philosophy. As such, they certainly could not be causes. Sensualism, therefore, at least as regulative hypothesis, if not as heuristic principle, and others say even that the external world is the work of our organs, but then our body, as a part of this external world, would be the work of our organs, but then our organs themselves would be the work of our organs. It seems to me that this is a complete reductio ad absurdum. If the conception causa sui is something fundamentally absurd, consequently, the external world is not the work of our organs. Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil. In Kant's philosophy, the mind creates the physical open paren phenomenal closed paren universe, but in practice that means that the senses must be the mind's instruments for producing the external world, since they yield all of our perceptions of it. Yet our sense organs are physical, not mental. Nietzsche, unlike the Kantians, saw the problem. Our sense organs create our bodies, but that means that they also create our sense organs, since those are part of our bodies. But how can they create themselves? In fact, certain types of idealism have a major problem. If we inhabit a purely mental world, why do we have bodies at all? Why do we have eyes and ears, noses, tongues and hands? Why don't we have spectral bodies without sense organs? Why don't we just float through some beautiful ethereal environment? There are many ways we could arrange a mental world that would be a lot better than the one we have. Cuttingly, Nietzsche wrote, Kant asked himself: how synthetic judgments a priori possible, and what, really, did he answer? By means of a faculty: but unfortunately not in a few words, but so circumspectly, venerably, and with such an expenditure of German profundity and flourishes that the comical niaiserie allemande involved in such an answer was overlooked. People even lost their heads altogether on account of this new faculty, and the rejoicing reached its climax when Kant went on further to discover a moral faculty in man. If people asked what makes a sleeping potion work and someone gave the answer, aha, its sleep-inducing properties, they would be laughed at. Yet Kant essentially said that we can make synthetic a priori judgments because of our faculty for making synthetic a priori judgments, and we can make moral judgments because of our faculty for making moral judgments. He completely failed to account for where these faculties originated and how they came about. So, like the scientists, he described but did not explain. Most explanations are nothing of the kind. They are elaborate descriptions framed in befuddling language that bamboozle the unwary. Nietzsche was a master at seeing through bullshit, especially moralistic bullshit. Illuminism is a form of idealism insofar as mind is primary, but it also establishes a strictly objective mathematical world with which minds have to conform rather than create. As for synthetic a priori judgments, Kant invented these for the sake of explaining away cause and effect. Leibniz, one of the greatest logicians of all time, had no need of such judgments. Synthetic a priori judgments have no logical basis. It is never properly appreciated that they turn science and mathematics into categories of the mind rather than objective truths that apply to an objective world that exists outside the subjective mind. Nietzsche on falsifiability. It is certainly not the least charm of a theory that it is refutable. It is precisely thereby that it attracts the more subtle minds. It seems that the 100-times- refuted theory of the freebill owes its persistence to this charm alone. Someone is always appearing who feels himself strong enough to refute it. Nietzsche. Falsifiability or refutability of an assertion, hypothesis or theory is the logical possibility that it can be contradicted by an observation or the outcome of a physical experiment. That something is falsifiable does not mean it is false. Rather, that if it is false, then some observation or experiment will produce a reproducible result that is in conflict with it. For example, the assertion that all swans are white is falsifiable, because it is empirically verifiable that there are swans that are not white. However, not all statements that are falsifiable in principle are falsifiable in practice. For example, it will be raining here in 1,000,000 years is theoretically falsifiable, but not practically so. The concept was made popular by Karl Popper, who, in his philosophical criticism of the popular positivist view of the scientific method, concluded that a hypothesis, proposition, or theory talks about the observable only if it is falsifiable. Wikipedia. Note that Nietzsche had introduced the concept of a refutable theory long before Popper. Interestingly, Nietzsche considered the theory of free will refuted. Like scientific materialists, he couldn't grasp free will, while, like scientific materialists, he assumed its existence all the time. If there's no free will, Nietzsche had no choice but to write his philosophy. Hence it's not actually his philosophy at all. He's merely a human typewriter. No one who reads his philosophy has any choice in the matter, and no one has any choice about whether to act on it. It's utterly pointless. Why is it that so many brilliant minds have succumbed to the absurdity that there's no such thing as free will? Make no mistake, free will is the supreme test of any theory, and any theory that cannot accommodate it is ipso facto refuted. Is thinking a superior formulation to I think therefore I am? Nietzsche was one of those who determinedly gnawed away at Descartes' logic, but did he succeed? He, like Hume, questioned the whole concept of I and self. But why would thinking that didn't belong to a specific thinking agent open paren and I close paren create the self-delusion that such an agent did exist? If there are no eyes in reality, how did we come to think that there are eyes? How can you make a simulacrum of something without the original? Postmodernists like to talk of the authentic fake and the copy without an original. But these concepts nevertheless acknowledge that there was a time when authenticity and fakery, copies and originals, were once all real. How can the simulacrum of I be based on anything but an authentic I? But if there is an authentic I, what need is there for a simulacrum? Occam's razor supports the simpler explanation, that we talk of an I because there is an I. It would be absurd to invoke a non-I that thinks it's an I. How could such a thing ever happen? It's much easier to accept an I that thinks it's an I than a non-I that thinks it's an I. A thinking substance that had no concept of itself as an I would never invent an I after all. What possible reason or precedent would it have for doing so? Something that thinks it's an I does so for the simple reason that it is an I. An I is a conscious life force at the center of all sorts of feelings, willing, desire and thinking which it, and it alone, is experiencing. It is not experiencing anyone else's feeling, willing, desire or thinking. To be sure, each monad starts off as it, but when it becomes conscious open paren or at least achieves neurotized sentience close paren, it becomes I. It thinks therefore it is converted by evolution into I think therefore I am, the theory of everything. We will literally answer everything, at least in terms of the big picture if not all the fine detail, by adopting the most reductionist approach ever seen, and then showing how this ultimate reduction is the flip side of ultimate holism, integration and synthesis open paren all handled mathematically, of course close paren. For the first time ever in the public domain, we will, in this series of books, be identifying and explaining the God equation that provides the basis of the whole of physical reality. If you are a scientist or a mathematician, you will almost certainly have encountered the God equation already, but not recognized it for what it is. We are immersed in a vast ocean of knowledge in which the supreme answers are already visible for those with the eyes to see. Most people stagger around in the corridors of knowledge as if they were blind, unable to see the answers right in front of their faces. Recognizing the true significance of existing knowledge is the launchpad for discovering new knowledge. If we can't recognize the truth as things stand, why would the accumulation of more and more knowledge help us? Scientific materialism has acquired an immense amount of knowledge regarding M-theory, its own provisional theory of everything, but after several decades, it is still nowhere near a final answer. It will never find an answer if it continues to prefer empiricist materialist dogmatism over rationalist mathematical truth. The God series presents Sato, theory of everything, which will stand as the most deadly rival science has ever faced since we are championing its own greatest tool: mathematics. This particular book, The God Game, has invited you to ponder what actually constitutes the answer to everything. If you encountered a burning bush in the desert and a voice in your head announced that the burning bush was I am that I am, would you regard that as the answer to everything, or would you go and see a psychiatrist? If an angel appeared to you in a cave and started dictating a rather dubious text to you, would that constitute the answer for you? If you saw Christ rising from the dead, would that be the answer to everything? Is resurrection indicative of the final answer? Open paren anyway. How would you know Christ wasn't the Antichrist? Don't the evil rise to close paren? When do you know that you have actually encountered the legitimate answer to everything? Can someone like Edgar Cayce provide the answer to everything? Is the answer to everything hidden in a pore at the Sphinx on the Giza Plateau? Is Allah the answer? Did aliens visit us thousands of years ago? If so, are they answer? What you are willing to accept as the answer says a huge amount about you. Is the final answer invested in a supernatural being, an ancient document, an extraordinary fact that defies conventional understanding, an alien species? Our assertion is that mathematics is the only possible logical, coherent, rational, definitive answer to everything. The God equation is so powerful and conclusive that you will be left in no conceivable doubt about the veracity of what we are saying. The final truth belongs to pure logic and to the necessary, immutable, eternal, analytic truths of mathematics. The answer to everything is ultimate mathematical rationality. Imagine how grotesque that is to people of faith who want the answer to everything to reside in the person of a mysterious super being. They don't want a rational answer that they themselves could understand if they were sufficiently rational. No, They want a being who is enormously more powerful than they are. In other words, it's not an answer they are seeking, it's somebody to worship. So what will you accept as the final answer, and what will you definitely not accept as the final answer? People ought to be clear about what they are seeking before they seek it. People of faith are seeking a being of supreme power. People of reason are seeking an answer that they can understand 100%. For rational people, the answer is a system of inevitable logic, lacking any capriciousness, randomness or contrivedness. It has nothing to do with any powerful being. For believers, the being they worship is all that matters. Once again, we see that believers and rationalists are more or less two different species, looking for completely different answers. As for the God equation, it is exactly what it ought to be: the most beautiful, elegant, economic and mind-boggling equation of mathematics ever discovered. Have you guessed what it is yet? Several people have mentioned Leibniz's monadology. This is of course a key text, but it should be pointed out that the published version was designed for a Christian audience that believed in a creator with 100% foreknowledge. Leibniz's true monadology, intended for a non-Christian audience, is radically different and precludes a creator. Monads are non-created and eternal. Moreover, they are fully interactive, hence are evolving in tandem with each other. There is no sure foreknowledge at all. You would reach many completely false conclusions about Leibniz's true thinking if you were to rely on his Christian monadology. His alternative monadology is the one upon which Illuminism is based, and it is, ultimately, entirely mathematical. It can't be stressed enough that mathematics is the only subject that offers eternal, immutable, necessary, analytic truths. If you want definitive answers to existence, you have nowhere else to go. If, on the other hand, you want bullshit, well, the choices are endless, as all the religions and philosophies of our world prove. July 4, 2012, the publication date of The God Game, hence World Independence Day. The liberation of humanity begins. Many of the most important books in history fall stillborn from the press, as David Hume put it. Ours will certainly suffer the same fate, but, even so, once these ideas are in the public domain, they will start to build an unstoppable momentum. It may take decades, just as it did for Christianity and Islam, but the liberation of humanity is on its way. Reason, mathematics, will set us free. The age of faith and mythos is coming to an end. We are entering the Logos age, the launchpad to human divinity. New humanity is here. Hyperhumanity. The Glass Bead Game. We ought to offer some advice on how to read this book and the others in the series. They are actually constructed in such a way as to provide a homage to Hermann Hesse's The Glass Bead Game, which was itself a homage to the Illuminati. The Glass Bead Game is an extraordinary game whereby underlying patterns in existence are discerned in apparently disparate things. It's a kind of hyper-sophisticated musical chess using, as the chess pieces, strands of information from all sorts of different topics and subjects. The game is to link the pieces in the most elegant, unexpected, beautiful and harmonious ways, revealing their deep connections and having them accompanied by the most exquisite music. So, these books are written in a hyperlink style where they leap from one thing to another and eschew linear, formal discursive techniques. The books are supposed to reflect the glass bead game itself, played at the ultimate existential level of revealing absolute truth. The books are also designed for maximum reading effectiveness, by keeping the reader's mind always slightly off balance by jumping back and forth between all manner of subjects, including high-level mathematics, ultra-advanced philosophy, cutting-edge physics, The Simpsons, South Park, horror movies, and so on. We hope to detonate an immense creative explosion in the mind of the reader. Putting it another way, You have no chance of understanding these books on a book-by-book basis, so don't get bogged down in the detail. The books are intended to be grasped across the whole series, approaching 1 million words in extent. Things that might make no sense in one book will become crystal clear in another where the same topic is addressed from a radically different angle. We recommend that you read the whole series without paying too much attention to detail initially, and let the whole thing wash over you like the ocean. If we have done our job right, you should start to reach an excellent intuitive understanding of the material. Afterwards, you can start the series again from whatever point most interests you and study the material in depth. Our aim is to present the most complex material of all time in as palatable a way as we can contrive. If we presented this material as pure philosophy, pure mathematics and pure science, it would make sense only to academics, and even most of them would scratch their heads. So, we've come out with a new style of presenting challenging material. Whether we have succeeded with our experiment will be for you to decide. But please suspend your judgment until all of the material is presented, especially since it was originally conceived as a single book and single project. Good luck to every player of the God game, the ultimate glass bead game. Summary. This is the introductory text of the series of books called the God series, in which the most ancient secret society in the world, the Pythagorean Illuminati, reveal, for the first time in the public domain, the answer to everything. Pythagoras provided a glimpse of the answer 2,500 years ago when he declared, "All things are numbers." However, this statement baffled everyone out with the Illuminati. The God series fully reveals what Pythagoras meant. Mathematics, built from numbers, is not an abstraction but is ontological. It actually exists. Numbers are real things. Specifically, they are the frequencies of energy waves. Moreover, energy waves are simply sinusoidal waves, sines and cosines, meaning that the study of energy is the study of sinusoids. There are infinity energy waves, hence infinite numbers. No numbers are privileged over any others. So negative and imaginary numbers are as ontologically important as real numbers. Upon which scientific materialism is exclusively based. Real numbers correspond to space and imaginary numbers to time. Negative numbers are antimatter. In a mirror image universe. The two most powerful numbers of all, and the ultimate basis of illuminist thinking, are 0 and infinity, which are harnessed together ontologically. Opposite sides of the same coin, so to speak. The existence of 0 and infinity is vehemently denied by the ideology of scientific materialism. In Illuminism, these two numbers not only exist, they are the God numbers, the origin of all other numbers, which are latent within them, balanced so as to cancel to 0 over all. 0 and infinity comprise the Big Bang singularity itself, from which an infinitely large universe emerged. Everything literally came from nothing. Moreover, 0 is also the monad of Leibniz. One of the greatest Illuminati grandmasters. It is therefore the number of the soul, and it has infinite capacity. Being dimensionless, a mathematical point, the soul is outside the dimensional, material domain of space and time, hence the soul is indestructible, immortal, and cannot be detected by any conventional scientific experiment. What we are describing are the necessary, analytic, eternal truths of mathematics. They have no connection with Abrahamic religious faith. There is no creator God, but, astoundingly, each soul is capable of being promoted to God status. Just as the pawn in chess can become the most important chess piece, the queen, if it reaches the other side of the battlefield. The board. In Illuminism, if you reach gnosis, enlightenment, you become God. Mathematics is literally everything. Unlike science, Mathematics offers certainty: 100% true and incontestable knowledge. Mathematics unifies science, religion and metaphysics. Mathematics is the true grand unified theory of everything that science pursues so futilely. Science can never deliver truth and certainty because it is inherently a succession of provisional theories, any of which can be overturned at any time by new experimental data. Science is based on ideas of validation and falsification. Mathematics is based on absolute analytic and inarguable certainty. No experiment can ever contradict a mathematical truth. Mathematics is the only answer to everything. Mathematics is the only subject inherently about eternal, Platonic truth. As soon as existence is understood to be nothing but ontological mathematics, all questions are ipso facto answered. The God series, starting with this book The God Game, reveals the astonishing power of ontological mathematics to account for everything, including things such as free will, irrationalism, emotion, consciousness and qualia, which seem to have no connection with mathematics. Read the God series and you will become a convert to the world's only rational religion, Illuminism, the Pythagorean religion of mathematics that infallibly explains all things and guarantees everyone a soul that is not only eternal but also has the capacity to make each of us a true God. Isn't it time to become illuminated? Conclusion. Mathematics, rightly viewed, possesses not only truth, but supreme beauty, a beauty cold and austere, like that of sculpture, without appeal to any part of our weaker nature, without the gorgeous trappings of painting or music, yet sublimely pure, and capable of a stern perfection such as only the greatest art can show. The true spirit of delight, the exaltation, the sense of being more than man, which is the touchstone of the highest excellence, is to be found in mathematics as surely as in poetry. Bertrand Russell, Study of Mathematics. If we have done our job properly, this book should have raised many more questions than answers. After all, it is simply the introduction to the God series. In the remainder of the series, we will address the key issues in far more detail, invoking far more mathematics. You have taken the first steps till mental liberation. The door to enlightenment has swung open. Beyond lies the most impressive structure in all the universe, one that embodies the language of God and the code of existence itself. It is no pharaoh's pyramid, it is mathematics, the ark, the source of all, the eternal one. Mathematics alone explains reality. Mathematics is the true God. Mathematics, living, ontological mathematics, is the principle of life and mind. Life and mind are defined by one number, 0, the monad, the soul. 0 is the number of subjectivity, and no scientific experiment will ever reveal its secrets. Unless you have understood subjectivity versus objectivity, you have understood nothing. Self-reference, mind, life, consciousness, free will, religion, psychology and metaphysics all revolve around subjectivity. Scientific empiricist materialism has no conception of subjectivity. It doesn't know how to study it, so simply denies its existence. The great truth of existence is that ultimately, there is only subjectivity. The objective world is the creation of subjective minds. Mathematics is the most mysterious subject of all. The properties of numbers deliver endless miracles. Who needs God when mathematics gives us so much more? Mathematics is the God factory: it does nothing but generate gods, an infinity of them. The end.